"Excuse me, but you're about to ruin the entire flight," Jasmine Carter said, her voice calm yet sharp, cutting through the soft hum of the jet engines as passengers glanced up from their magazines and devices. The cabin fell into a momentary hush, every eye turning toward the center aisle where Emily Clark, the lead flight attendant, held a half-full glass of red wine precariously tipped toward the executive's table. Jasmine, standing tall in her tailored navy blazer and designer slacks, didn't flinch. She had been in countless boardrooms, negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts, and handled crises in airports and corporate offices, yet this situation, high above 30,000 feet, demanded a composure that would ripple across every gaze focused on her. Her black leather heels clicked softly against the aisle floor, a metronome keeping rhythm with the tension that seemed to tighten the air. Emily, dainty in appearance but fierce in attitude, smirked, her blonde hair catching the fluorescent lights of the cabin, as if daring anyone to challenge her audacity. Passengers leaned forward, intrigued, whispering questions to the seatmates beside them, some discreetly filming on their smartphones, the small lenses capturing the precise moment a CEO was confronted mid-flight. Jasmine's hands, poised with quiet authority, gestured slightly toward the wine glass, not in anger, but in measured instruction. "Please set that down," she said again, her tone unwavering, echoing over the soft clinks of service carts and the subtle whir of overhead ventilation. The light from the cabin windows streaked across her calm expression, illuminating her sharp cheekbones and the determined glint in her brown eyes. Her presence seemed to create a bubble of gravity around her, compelling the staff and passengers alike to momentarily suspend their movements, hanging in balance between amusement and unease. The scent of the poured wine mixed with the faint aroma of heated metal and recycled air, accentuating the surreal stillness. Each passenger's attention flickered between the poised figure of Jasmine and the precarious glass in Emily's hand, sensing that the outcome of this small yet potent act would define the tenor of the flight. Jasmine's calmness contrasted sharply with Emily's confident posture, a silent contest of power and morality playing out under the overhead bins filled with life vests and safety cards. The tension was palpable, almost tangible, as if the very air in the cabin held its breath, waiting for the ripple effect of consequence to unfold, each second stretching longer than the last. And there, amidst the muted murmurs and the clicking of buckles, Jasmine Carter's composed gaze met Emily's challenging stare, a silent declaration that authority and dignity were not defined by who held the glass, but by who could wield respect and reason above impulse and bravado. Jasmine Carter adjusted the small leather strap of her briefcase, sliding it gently over her shoulder as she walked along the aisle, her eyes scanning the cabin with the precision of someone who had mastered both strategy and empathy over years of executive experience. Each row of seats reflected soft ambient light from the overhead panels, glinting faintly off the silver tray tables and the polished chrome edges of the seatbelt buckles. She noted the subtle expressions on the faces of the passengers, the tension held in the slight narrowing of their eyes, the barely audible murmurs that drifted from one row to another, the faint shuffle of feet against carpeted flooring. Her hands rested momentarily on the back of a seat as she passed, feeling the cool texture of the fabric, grounding herself amidst the currents of whispered speculation. Jasmine had flown on countless commercial and private aircraft, often overseeing operational audits, but she never took these flights lightly. She understood that in the sky, authority was defined as much by calm decisiveness as by formal titles. Her brown eyes, steady and observant, caught every movement of the crew, noting how the younger attendants glanced at her for reassurance, how a stack of service menus had been aligned just slightly askew, and how the tray cart in the mid-cabin aisle creaked softly with the gentle sway of the aircraft. She exhaled slowly, allowing a small measure of human patience to balance the acute awareness that had guided her through high-stakes negotiations and crisis management back on the ground. As she approached the midsection exit door, the faint hum of the air conditioning systems and the soft vibration of the engines under the cabin floor created a rhythm that she absorbed, integrating it into the steady cadence of her stride. In a quiet voice, measured and controlled, she addressed one of the junior flight attendants, instructing them to check the passenger service units and ensure that all safety equipment remained fully accessible. Her tone carried authority without aggression, confidence without condescension, creating a calm ripple through the cabin. Jasmine's posture, upright yet relaxed, communicated unspoken competence. She did not need to raise her voice to be heard. The passengers, now subtly adjusting in their seats, reflected a growing awareness that this was a person whose calmness contained layers of experience, intelligence, and careful observation, someone who could navigate not just the immediate situation but any unforeseen events that might unfold. Even Emily Clark, standing near the beverage cart, felt the weight of that quiet authority, realizing that the controlled precision of Jasmine's movements and the measured gaze she cast around the cabin carried the kind of influence that could not be undermined by impulsive gestures or social bravado. Jasmine's attention flicked briefly to the folded safety card tucked into the seat pocket beside her, a small reminder of procedure and protocol, reinforcing the duality of her awareness, blending operational knowledge with the unspoken power of presence, a seamless alignment of mind and body that drew subtle respect from all around her without a single raised hand. Jasmine Carter reached the front of the cabin where the galley lights reflected off the polished stainless steel surfaces, creating thin, golden streaks that played across the white panels and the rows of navy blue seats. Her eyes swept over the flight attendants stationed along the aisle, noting the subtle shifts in posture and the way hands lingered over service carts, as if measuring the unspoken authority she carried without a raised voice. Emily Clark, still holding the glass of wine, straightened her back, her confidence slightly flickering as Jasmine's calm intensity settled around her like an invisible aura. The passengers sensed it too, a quiet shift in the atmosphere that made the soft murmurs die down, replaced by the gentle hum of the air conditioning system and the soft whirring of the engines. Jasmine's gaze moved to the overhead bins, checking that everything was securely latched, then back to the aisle, her presence commanding yet composed, a living demonstration of balance between experience and empathy. She spoke to the nearest junior attendant, her voice measured and deliberate. "Please ensure that all service carts are stable and that nothing is left unsecured. Safety is the responsibility of everyone on board, not just those at the helm." Her words carried a weight beyond their literal meaning, embedding the principle of accountability into the room without a single sharp tone. Every movement she made was precise, from the way her hands rested lightly on the back of a seat to the slight tilt of her head as she scanned for any irregularities. She acknowledged small details, like the slight misalignment of the folded safety cards, the faint scuff marks on the carpeting, the soft flicker of the cabin lighting, integrating all of it into a mental map of the environment. The passengers, aware of her steady focus, began to lean slightly forward in their seats, curiosity and admiration mingling in their expressions as they watched the measured unfolding of authority. Even Emily, sensing the shift, adjusted her grip on the wine glass, a subtle acknowledgement that the dynamic had changed, that composure and clarity could override bluster and spectacle. Jasmine's posture remained upright yet relaxed, a study in confidence tempered with control, conveying the message that authority came from clarity and poise rather than force or intimidation. Each footstep echoed faintly, in harmony with the gentle vibration of the plane, a quiet rhythm underscoring her methodical approach. The soft click of her heels against the aisle floor punctuated her commands as she moved past passengers and crew, every gesture purposeful and precise. Her brown eyes held a sharp attentiveness, observing the smallest reactions, the tiniest shifts in expression, storing them for the necessary moment when a decision might be required. Around her, the cabin seemed to respond to her silent direction. Trays were adjusted, posture corrected, and a sense of calm authority replaced the earlier tension. Jasmine's awareness extended to the subtle flow of air through the cabin vents, the muted reflections off window shades, the way the light fell across the passengers' faces, all integrated seamlessly into her perception. In this high-altitude microcosm, she embodied control and poise, turning a potentially chaotic moment into a demonstration of leadership, teaching by presence and example rather than overt assertion, every detail contributing to an unspoken narrative of competence and respect that resonated throughout the cabin. Jasmine Carter took a deliberate step toward the mid-cabin, her polished shoes making a soft clicking sound against the narrow aisle carpet as she moved past passengers who were now leaning slightly forward in their seats, curiosity and tension mingling in their expressions. Her eyes, sharp and observant, caught every flicker of movement, every subtle shift in posture from the flight attendants who had previously been confident in their control of the cabin environment. Emily Clark's grip on the wine glass tightened slightly, her shoulders stiffening as she realized that the composure of Jasmine carried a weight that extended beyond the immediate act. It was the quiet assertion of authority grounded in expertise and calm reasoning. Jasmine reached the service cart with deliberate grace, her hand resting lightly on the edge as she addressed Emily in a firm but measured tone, explaining the implications of unstable items on a flight and the potential for procedural consequences, her voice clear and precise over the low hum of the engines. Passengers turned their heads in subtle synchrony, noticing the soft articulation of authority that did not need to raise its volume to command attention, a natural magnetism in the calmness of Jasmine's speech that drew respect without intimidation. The overhead lights glimmered off her dark blazer, illuminating the lines of her face and the confident set of her shoulders, each gesture purposeful and steady. She glanced at the nearby junior attendants, offering a nod of acknowledgement that communicated competence and expectations simultaneously, reinforcing her silent message that professionalism and awareness were paramount. Jasmine's movements were measured and fluid, adjusting the placement of the tray on the cart, ensuring it was secure while maintaining eye contact with Emily, whose previous smirk had now softened into cautious attention. The subtle scent of polished metal, combined with the faint aroma of wine and the recycled cabin air, created an almost cinematic backdrop for the exchange, highlighting the quiet intensity of a confrontation resolved through presence rather than force. Passengers shifted minutely in their seats, some straightening, some leaning closer to observe, a quiet collective recognition forming that the dynamic in the cabin had changed, that the balance of authority had subtly tilted. Jasmine's gaze swept across the rows one more time, noting the attentiveness of the crew, the curiosity and subtle respect in the eyes of those seated, and the barely perceptible tension that now existed between Emily and herself, a tension not born of hostility but of recognition that composure and informed action had greater weight than assertiveness alone. The soft vibration of the aircraft, combined with the faint creak of overhead bins and the gentle flutter of napkins on the fold-down trays, punctuated her measured movements, creating a rhythm that underscored the unfolding exchange of authority. In every detail, from the subtle alignment of tray tables to the precise adjustment of seat belts, Jasmine's presence demonstrated the seamless integration of observation, judgment, and calm decision-making, reinforcing a silent lesson that influence and respect were commanded through expertise, awareness, and controlled demeanor rather than impulse or visible dominance. Passengers absorbed the scene, their attention riveted not on the spilled wine itself but on the quiet mastery of a CEO navigating an unexpected challenge at 35,000 feet, the authority in her stance clear, the power in her measured voice undeniable, and the cabin now aligned, even subconsciously, with the unspoken command of her expertise. Jasmine Carter felt the subtle shift in energy ripple through the cabin as passengers leaned slightly forward in their seats, some straightening in anticipation, others whispering softly to those beside them, their curiosity mirrored in the watchful eyes of the flight attendants. Emily Clark, standing near the beverage cart with a half-full glass of red wine in hand, blinked rapidly, a flicker of uncertainty passing across her face as the composed confidence of Jasmine filled the space between them. The gentle hum of the engine seemed to underscore the moment, the vibrations through the floor and the faint mechanical clicks from the overhead bins punctuating the tense stillness. Jasmine's gaze swept across the cabin, noting the attentive stances of the crew and the passengers, her eyes landing on a young mother adjusting her child's seatbelt, the child glancing toward the aisle with wide eyes, sensing the silent authority that now dominated the environment. She took a measured step closer, her heels clicking lightly against the aisle carpet, and addressed Emily with a calm, precise tone that carried over the quiet murmur of the cabin, explaining once again the importance of maintaining stability and safety, the potential for cascading effects from a single misplaced object, and the professional expectation for all crew members to act with deliberate care. Each word was chosen to impart both instruction and clarity, projecting authority without hostility, demonstrating a mastery of presence that resonated across the cabin like a carefully tuned chord. The red wine in Emily's hand wavered slightly, the angle of the glass catching the cabin lights, casting a small crimson reflection onto the polished surface of the service cart below. Passengers watched the exchange with keen interest, their attention shifting from casual observation to the unfolding interaction, sensing the layered competence and controlled energy Jasmine radiated. She moved with precise purpose, adjusting the placement of the cart slightly to ensure full stability, her movements deliberate, fluid, and imbued with a quiet gravity that conveyed command without confrontation. Emily's previous smirk faded into a tentative line as the implications of Jasmine's composure and subtle mastery became apparent, her posture subtly shifting under the weight of unspoken acknowledgement. The cabin lights flickered gently in the afternoon sun streaming through the small oval windows, casting soft reflections across the aisle and onto the passengers' attentive faces, each detail magnifying the impact of Jasmine's silent, calculated control. Her presence alone organized the flow of the space, every action measured and intentional, each small gesture a demonstration of precision, balance, and authority. Even the overhead bins, closed with a careful push, seemed to reflect the sense of order and calm that Jasmine imposed without raising her voice, illustrating that influence and respect could be asserted through calm intelligence and deliberate action rather than force. The quiet intensity of the moment held the attention of all, the subtle interplay of movement, observation, and presence creating a palpable tension that required no further words, the entire cabin attuned to the seamless demonstration of competence and quiet power, the authority of Jasmine Carter clear in every measured glance, step, and gesture, turning a potentially chaotic moment into a demonstration of professionalism and poise that resonated with every observer. Jasmine Carter stood still in the center aisle, the soft glow of the cabin lights casting a warm halo around her dark hair and sharply tailored blazer, allowing a brief pause to absorb the subtle reactions of those around her. The passengers, previously tense with curiosity, now held their breath in a quiet collective observation, their gazes flicking from the poised figure of Jasmine to the slowly lowering glass in Emily Clark's hand. Jasmine's brown eyes scanned the rows, noticing the way a young business traveler adjusted his briefcase, the faint nervous tap of a child's foot against the floor, the subtle incline of heads toward her as if drawn by an unspoken magnetism of authority. The gentle vibration of the plane beneath her heels harmonized with the soft hum of the air conditioning, creating a quiet symphony that framed the moment in understated tension. She exhaled deliberately, a measured release that seemed to ripple through the cabin, softening the anxious energy in the room while maintaining a steady focus that anchored the attention of crew and passengers alike. The slight sway of the aircraft as it passed through a thin cloud layer added an almost imperceptible rhythm to the scene, highlighting the calm precision of her stance against the natural motion around her. Emily's expression shifted minutely, a subtle acknowledgement that the calm controlled Jasmine radiated carried weight far beyond the immediate interaction, suggesting a quiet authority built from experience and deliberate action rather than vocal assertion. Jasmine's gaze moved to the overhead panels, noting the faint reflection of light off the silver edges and the alignment of service trolleys in the aisles, each detail a small test of attentiveness and procedural care that mirrored the same vigilance she applied in corporate boardrooms and strategic meetings on the ground. The cabin, now quieter, seemed to breathe in unison with her measured presence, a synchronization of observation and respect flowing subtly from one observer to another, reinforcing the invisible hierarchy established through poise and clarity. Her hands rested lightly on the edge of a seat back as she balanced, a silent anchor amid the movement of crew preparing for the next service, each gesture deliberate, unhurried, and precise. The subtle shine of the window panels caught the late afternoon light, reflecting across her focused expression, and the passengers could sense that the authority she embodied was calm but undeniable. She allowed a small, almost imperceptible nod toward Emily, signaling acknowledgement without condescension, a quiet lesson in leadership that did not require raised voices or overt gestures, yet resonated powerfully in its clarity. The soft rustle of seatbelts and the faint shuffle of papers created a delicate counterpoint to the stillness, emphasizing the attentive control Jasmine maintained. In this suspended moment, high above the clouds, the cabin felt both contained and expansive, the interplay of light, sound, and measured movement amplifying the gravity of her presence. Every observer, from the cabin crew to seated passengers, was attuned to the subtleties of her posture, her gaze, and her controlled breathing, recognizing that authority was being asserted not through dominance, but through calm intelligence, observation, and the quiet assurance of someone fully in command of the environment around them. Jasmine Carter's eyes caught the subtle reflection of the cabin's security monitor as it flickered to life, displaying a wide-angle view of the aisle and the service cart, revealing the precise alignment of the items and the slight tilt of the wine glass that had caused the earlier moment of tension. Emily Clark, who had maintained a confident facade, froze briefly as she realized the clarity of Jasmine's observation and the accuracy of her instructions, the weight of evidence confirming the correctness of Jasmine's calm intervention. Passengers shifted in their seats, leaning subtly forward, some glancing at the screen, others at Jasmine herself, noting the seamless execution of authority that required no raised voice, no confrontation, only the steady, observant presence of someone fully attuned to the environment. The faint vibration of the aircraft, combined with the soft hum of the engines and the subtle clicking of overhead bins as attendants adjusted, formed a quiet, rhythmic backdrop that underscored the precision of Jasmine's actions and the unfolding acknowledgement of her correctness. Jasmine walked slowly along the aisle, her gaze sweeping across the rows with meticulous attention, ensuring that each tray table, each folded napkin, each seatbelt buckle was in proper order, her movements deliberate yet fluid, projecting confidence and competence in every step. Emily's previous smirk had softened into a line of hesitant recognition, her posture subtly adjusting under the silent authority Jasmine radiated, the cabin filled with an almost imperceptible tension as the balance of perception shifted in Jasmine's favor. The passengers absorbed the scene, sensing that the outcome of the moment was being guided by clarity, composure, and precise awareness rather than any overt display of force. The cabin now quietly aligned to the rhythm set by Jasmine's careful, authoritative movements. Light from the windows played across the surfaces, highlighting the polished tray carts, the neatly arranged service items, and the reflective stainless steel of the galley, each glint emphasizing the attention to detail and control Jasmine maintained. Her hands rested lightly on the edge of a seat as she passed, a small gesture that combined stability with presence, further reinforcing her influence without a single raised voice. The subtle scent of polished metal mingled with the faint aroma of wine, creating a sensory backdrop that complemented the visual cues and the quiet energy flowing through the cabin. Every movement, every glance, every measured step reinforced the narrative of competence, authority, and calm decisiveness, making clear to both crew and passengers that respect and adherence were derived from observant, deliberate action rather than confrontation or loud assertion. Jasmine paused briefly, allowing the moment to settle, letting the quiet acknowledgement of her presence resonate throughout the cabin, ensuring that the lesson was received without a word of reprimand, a silent testament to the power of composure, awareness, and well-earned authority. Jasmine Carter straightened her posture, allowing a subtle exhale to release the tension that had built quietly within her, and took a small step toward the galley where Emily Clark still lingered with a tentative expression, the realization of her own misjudgment evident in the soft furrow of her brow. The cabin, now hushed in attentive anticipation, seemed to lean forward with Jasmine's every movement, the gentle hum of the engines and the soft vibration beneath the floor blending into a rhythmic background that emphasized the shift in authority. Jasmine's gaze softened just slightly, conveying a calm acknowledgement that no words could surpass, demonstrating that integrity and professionalism were recognized without overt confrontation or admonishment. Passengers followed the subtle cues, adjusting posture and exchanging brief, quiet glances with each other, a collective understanding settling into the cabin that competence and composure had prevailed. She gestured toward the overhead bins, not as a reprimand but as a silent reminder of proper protocol, her hands moving with measured precision as she adjusted a misaligned tray and smoothed the fold of a safety card, each action reinforcing the value of careful observation and thoughtful response. Emily, now aware of the meticulous attention Jasmine applied to every detail, nodded minutely, a gesture of quiet respect and acknowledgement, her earlier assertiveness tempered by the realization of Jasmine's steadfast control. The afternoon light streaming through the cabin windows reflected off the polished surfaces, casting long, subtle shadows that danced across the aisle, highlighting the contrast between the composed authority of Jasmine and the softened demeanor of Emily. The passengers absorbed the scene, sensing the equilibrium restored not through loud assertion but through calm presence, deliberate attention, and informed decision-making, each movement of Jasmine carrying a resonance of competence that subtly recalibrated the dynamics of the cabin. Jasmine's steps were light yet purposeful, her hands occasionally brushing the edge of a seat for balance, her eyes continuously scanning for any further irregularities, ensuring that her influence was felt and understood without the need for any forceful display. The soft ambient sounds of the aircraft, from the quiet whir of the ventilation system to the occasional rustle of a seatbelt or tray, punctuated the scene, emphasizing the deliberate calm that Jasmine embodied, a stark contrast to the previous tension and uncertainty. Every detail, from the alignment of the service cart to the careful observation of the crew's posture, contributed to an unspoken narrative of respect, authority, and ethical professionalism that resonated across the cabin. Passengers and crew alike recognized the unassailable presence of someone whose command came not from volume or intimidation, but from a seamless combination of poise, observation, and unwavering integrity, a demonstration of leadership that was quiet yet deeply impactful, leaving a lasting impression of order, respect, and ethical certainty in the wake of Jasmine Carter's composed intervention. Jasmine Carter stepped slowly toward the rear of the cabin, her polished heels making soft, rhythmic clicks against the aisle carpet, each step measured and deliberate, drawing the attention of passengers and crew alike. The sunlight filtering through the small oval windows created faint, golden highlights on the surfaces of the overhead bins and tray tables, reflecting the subtle movement of her figure as she walked with unhurried confidence. The gentle hum of the aircraft and the quiet shuffle of the flight attendants created a calm backdrop that contrasted sharply with the intensity of the moment, emphasizing the composed control Jasmine exuded. Her gaze swept across the cabin once more, noting the attentive posture of the crew, the passengers' slightly widened eyes, and the subtle nods of recognition from those who had observed the unfolding events, all silently acknowledging her authority and poise. Emily Clark, now standing near the beverage cart with a tentative expression, shifted slightly, the realization of the earlier imbalance settling into a quiet acceptance as she met Jasmine's calm, unwavering gaze. Jasmine's hands moved with precision as she lightly adjusted a folded safety card and ensured the alignment of the tray tables, each gesture purposeful, communicating competence, integrity, and quiet leadership without the need for words. The soft vibration of the aircraft beneath her feet and the faint whir of the engines provided a steady rhythm, punctuating the stillness that had settled over the cabin and reinforcing the subtle power in her presence. The passengers absorbed the scene, watching the seamless execution of authority, the clarity of thought, and the deliberate composure that had transformed tension into respect. The polished surfaces of the service carts reflected the cabin lights, creating a visual harmony that mirrored the orderly and controlled atmosphere Jasmine maintained, each detail reinforcing the impact of her measured actions. Her eyes met those of a few attentive passengers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of their awareness and the shared understanding that control and respect could be asserted through calm observation, deliberate action, and integrity rather than force or ostentation. As she reached the back of the cabin, Jasmine paused, her posture relaxed yet undeniably authoritative, taking in the quiet alignment of the crew and the passengers, a subtle demonstration that leadership, when executed with clarity and poise, resonated without words, creating an atmosphere of calm, ethical authority that lingered throughout the cabin. The soft reflections of sunlight across the cabin, the faint hum of the engines, the gentle shift of passengers in their seats, and the stillness of the crew combined to form a tableau of respect, order, and quiet influence, a closing scene in which Jasmine's presence, awareness, and composed decisiveness left a lasting impression, the cabin now harmonized under the steady, unobtrusive power of her guidance.